disruptive.
Weird thing to happen. You remember we showed you this? How at the same time when they're barring people from enjoying summer activities in the forest area, they're spraying glyphosate, a harmful toxic chemical, onto these drought-stricken forests that are fire-prone. And glyphosate is not only toxic for human health and natural well-being, it's also very flammable. So it's the complete opposite of fire protection and preventing forest fires. And Nova Scotia, the premier, gladly accepted the approval of glyphosate spraying for over 3,500 acres of these forest areas. And this is sadly nothing new for Canadians because, as Table Salt pointed this out, this was a couple of years ago. This is out in BC, where it was reported the constant spraying of this toxic herbicide onto these forest areas that's highly flammable. And one thing about BC that we know about here in Canada, it's very prone to these active wildfires. So it says, watch, this is one of the only handful of videos in existence that have captured glyphosate spraying on North American forests. This news clip from Global News a few years ago. The only places you're going to see where they actually explain to people how they are spraying toxinogens into the forest area and into the atmosphere.
Activists who say these choppers were spraying the herbicide glyphosate on forest clear-cuts south of Prince George about 10 years ago. Spraying operations like these continue in BC to this day and are carried out in support of the timber industry. Glyphosate is a powerful herbicide that many would know as the active ingredient in Roundup.
They use these sprays to mitigate the what they call competitive growth and competitive vegetation.
Ronnie Dean Harris and Angelina Hopkins Rose have been researching a recent permit application that, if approved, would allow for aerial and ground spraying to happen on Crown land over a massive territory, stretching from Hope to Squamish. They have many concerns.
The effects on people are still inconclusive. It's been rated as probably carcinogenic by some agencies, but for us, the real effect.
Probably carcinogenic. You know, it's not like we can just go onto Google right now and research all the lawsuits that have occurred over the last decade of people suing Roundup and suing Monsanto and the manufacturers that create these harmful chemicals and spraying into everything from our food supply to the atmosphere to our forest areas, just contaminating our natural spaces. It's not like we can go on the internet and find out for ourselves. No, it's probably carcinogenic. That's why we should keep doing it, right? That's why we should keep doing it, because the timber. We gotta keep doing it for the timber market.
Effects in nature can be catastrophic.
Both are of indigenous descent and worry about the effect on the berries and traditional medicines they gather.
So, that right there, that's shocking that Global News even put this out here. Because you'd think they'd be scared to touch this. They'd be petrified to spread some sort of conspiracy like this. Oh, you're telling me that they're spraying toxins into the air? You're telling me that's the case? I thought that was just, condensation. That's what we were told as young kids, right? When you look up the sky there and you see just smoke coming out of airplanes in certain areas and it doesn't look like clouds. It's just condensation. Not a big deal. Just as people are getting sicker, as people are getting more and more cancers and diseases and people's health is deteriorating over time. Nothing to worry about, right? Nothing to be concerned or alarmed about in that regard. Well, a lot of people turn out to be very concerned about this, that they stopped one specific area. So we shown how in northern Ontario, they were approving these forest areas for the spraying of glyphosate. And a lot of people are up in arms. There was protests from First Nations communities and people within the cities and towns in northern Ontario. And here, from Bay Today, it says aerial herbicide spraying called off in North Shore Forest for 2025. A planned aerial herbicide spray across parts of northern Ontario has been abruptly halted for the North Shore, Serpent River, and Pinelands forests following a wave of protests led by Indigenous communities and environmental advocates. So people saw how harmful this is. People know how devastating it is, how it's not good for plant life. It's not good for human health. It may be carcinogenic, according to that guy. It's not like we'll never know for sure. We just can't go online and, scope it out for ourselves because doing our own research is bad. But these people are saying, no, we're not going to have this sprayed onto nature, onto our communities, onto our properties, onto the forest area that's very diverse, that provides us oxygen. It's necessary for human health. And you want to make it toxic? You want to spray this harmful chemical onto nature and make things worse for everybody, all life on this earth, for what, the timber market? Just absolutely crazy. So they spoke out and they convinced the provincial government that approved this to halt it. And here might be why. So this scientist here, military doctor, he's a whistleblower. So the military is involved in this. That should tell you something. The military is involved in the spraying of these harmful chemicals. What does that kind of tell you? It's not an environmental scientist. It's not a naturalist. It's the military doing this. So that should send alarm bells to people that, hey, spraying glyphosate being done by government ministries and the military involved with it doesn't seem like it's benefiting nature. And as this guy is going to point out, it's just a short clip here, this whistleblower is revealing that these trails, these chemtrails, contain harmful substances that when people breathe it or it gets onto their skin or exposed to it for long periods of time is damaging to their health, damaging to their neurological health, their physical health, and damaging to the surrounding area, the natural well-being of the surrounding area that gets sprayed with this. So listen.
Chemtrails, by the way, barium salts are in chemtrails. They are 10,000 times more toxic to your nervous system than lead. They contain mycobacteria, viruses, Pseudomonas florensis bacteria, human plasma. Wonder what human plasma is doing in chemtrails. And this is not by conjecture. I did a lot.
Human plasma. You know what that is? That's blood. Blood is being sprayed into the atmosphere. Human blood is being sprayed into the atmosphere along with these other harmful substances. That's somehow benefiting who? Is that's somehow good for the planet? Good for plants? Good for us? That you're spraying plasma, human blood, and other nanoparticles into the atmosphere that we're going to breathe in at one point or another and is going to harm us and damage us? Who's benefiting from this? Who's benefiting from this?
A lot of research before I'd ever say this, but these chemtrails are nasty. And there's 3 reasons for chemtrails. The first is and I talked to my NSA buddies at Fort Carson, Peterson Air Force Base, and Buckley, where I was actually their doctor taking care of the pilots flying and spraying the chemtrails. So I know it's real. If anybody says it's not real, they're full of it. Okay? Because I'm a whistleblower. On the inside, it's not open for discussion. And my NSA buddies told me, 95% of them told me, they were up there trying to spray to reflect the sun out to stop global warming. So most of them are dumb enough to believe that garbage. Okay? And also in the chemtrails, and there's a link directly that Jeff Francis found out, and I'm going to have Dr. Staninger and Dr. Carjou on in about a week on my radio show. And I've done some investigations, and there's very solid evidence now that Morgellons is caused by a silicon-based nanomachine life form that does not originate on planet Earth. Is that not interesting? This is a silicon-based life form that is intelligent like bees or ants, and it fights back. Conversion of the atmosphere into a plasma for weather modification, geotectonic warfare, scalar mind control technologies, the woodpecker, which has been discovered back in the 70s, HARP, the Tetris system in the United Kingdom, Gwen towers in the United States, and the Iridium satellite system connected to the cell towers and the smart highways is all based on not only sending out a signal to track you, but Nokia, which is one of the leading cell companies, has figured out a new way to cut down the need for increasing the amount of signal by 3 to 5 times as many cell phones in the same signal area by beaming the signal directly to you. But they can also, besides the cell signal, they can actually have a biocoded signal to your DNA to affect your physiology and insert thoughts into your mind. And they have this technology today.
So, yeah, that is alarming. That is alarming. And there's a lot more that needs to be exposed. There's a lot of documentaries pointing this out. It's not conspiracy at this point to look in the atmosphere and see these formations that do not look like natural clouds. People know what a cloud looks like. People know how a cloud is formed. And when it comes out of a plane in certain areas, certain little tiny areas, he can tell you that it is not from condensation. That this is part of a scheme, whether being for weather modification or whether being for natural warfare. Because that's what weather modification is. It's natural warfare. It's using the elements of nature and weather and climate against populations. And they've been doing this for eons. They did weather modification back in Vietnam to cause monsoon rains to further extend the amount of rainfall in these areas so that the Vietnamese soldiers are having a harder time to grow vegetation, but also it's harder for the Vietnam soldiers to attack American troops. So they were doing biological warfare. They were doing weather modifications onto their enemies. And it would not surprise me if they would take that technology that they had back in the day and continue that on in certain different areas to attack ourselves. It would not surprise me. It would not surprise me one bit. And this is not, like I said, it's not a conspiracy at this point to look at the sky and figure this out. But even with all this information, they're still continuing on with this. So, The Guardian, this is from 4 months ago, UK scientists to launch outdoor geoengineering experiments. Blocking sunlight could temporarily slow the climate crisis, but the technologies remain highly controversial. They're blocking sunlight. The UK government is blocking sunlight. Sunlight is vital for existence. It's vital for plants. It's vital for trees. It's vital for humans. So this idea that they're going to spray a chemical concoction into the air, blocking out necessary sunlight that's vital for human existence and is good for our mental state and physical well-being, shows how insane these governments are in their rampant warfare against you. Against you. That's what all this entails, that this is weather modification and geoengineering to attack you. You are the ones they want to remove. You are the ones that are causing climate change. Not me. not the one that goes on private jets and goes offshore all to these different islands, not the one that has multiple yachts with huge diesel engines the size of football arenas. Not me. It's rules for thee, but not for me. And in order to protect you from climate change, we are going to make it impossible to get proper sunlight. That's what the UK government is announcing in this from 4 months ago. And we've seen numerous videos, numerous reports coming out. They give you little hints there and here and there about geoengineering, about weather modification. They acknowledge it. They acknowledge it exists. But they still want you to say that it's a conspiracy. Oh, it's nothing to worry about. It's just probably water vapor. It's not a big deal. And even to show people this, so remember when Daniel Smith mentioned about chemtrails? And same with Premier Scott Moe. Because they can look up in the sky, they can notice something's up, and then they talk about it. But, of course, the media, brought to you by pharmaceuticals, brought to you by Big Agra, brought to you by the military-industrial complex, they're going to slam on the premiers. This is from the Calgary Herald. It says, why Daniel Smith, Scott Moe, and other politicians get caught up in the chemtrails conspiracy. As politicians defend conspiracy theories, it raises questions about what else they are willing to look into at the request of constituents, one expert argues. They still want to call it a conspiracy. And what's so hilarious is that the article, the headline wants you to demonize Daniel Smith and Scott Moe for saying that chemtrails exist. And look at the picture they're using in the article. They're showing you that is chemtrails. Those lines are not natural. Those lines are not natural. That's not water vapor. That's not how clouds are formed. That's not condensation. That is chemicals deliberately being sprayed purposely against us. So, Daniel Smith and Scott Moe might have been onto something. And that's why they need the Calgary Herald to jump on this and say, why are you bringing this up? Why they keep talking about chemtrails and weather modification? It's nothing. It's harmless. Don't talk about it. We're doing geoengineering. Yeah, I get it. We're doing geoengineering and cloud seeding and putting these harmful chemicals, but don't talk about it. It's a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy. Even personally, I can vouch that this is not a conspiracy. So, let me just show people this. This just happened recently. I was out walking my dog, and I went by this local park in my neighborhood here, and I looked up, and I could show you, here's some pictures of this, that this is not natural. That what I'm seeing here is not clouds. What I'm seeing here is not part of natural order. What I'm seeing here is some sort of concoction. And you can see, it looks like dust. It looks like a layer of dust is forming in the sky. Not clouds, but just a layer of dust. Almost like it was sprayed out of a plane. You can even see the line where the plane is going, being sprayed out of the plane and caused this kind of little layer right on top of the atmosphere, right there. Like it's almost like a blanket of these chemicals. Here's another picture. Tell me. Does that look right to you? Does that look like nature to you? Does that look like when you were a kid and you looked up at the clouds and you used your imagination to figure out what the clouds look like? Does that look like nature to you? This is right over the park. Look at that. That's not normal. That's not normal. And you can see there's another plane. going across, spraying harmful chemicals. So, anyone with eyes, anyone who has ever looked up in the sky when they take their dog for a walk or enjoy the day, and you see that clear skies all of a sudden have this kind of little tiny, almost like a blanket. It looks like clouds, but it's not really clouds. That's how you know. That's how you know that chemtrails do exist. It's not a conspiracy. And it is a diabolical cover-up, more so than what you can imagine. It's not just changing the weather and adding more clouds for rainfall. It's far worse than that. But of course, we're not going to get the full information. We're not going to get the full context because they want to keep it under wraps. And the fact that this has ties to the military, I find disturbing. I find disturbing that geoengineering has ties to military ops. Man, it should be tied, if anything, it should be tied to environmentalists and naturalists. But I can tell you the environmentalists and naturalists that I know are deeply against this. They're deeply against this. They'd be protesting with the First Nations communities to stop glyphosate spraying, as they're complaining about how these wildfires are coming about and how devastating it is and how dry everything is, and you can't go outside, you can't go walk through the forest. But yet they want to spray chemicals, toxic, harmful carcinogens into the atmosphere and make our natural order even worse. This is man playing God. This is diabolical. And if you still want to think it's a conspiracy, I encourage people, go outside today. If you have clear skies, just wait a little bit. Wait a little bit. Look up at the sky. And if you start seeing a plane go by and start spraying out these lines, really look at it hard and really think, can condensation really do that? Can condensation really look like this? Or this? Or this? Or is there something more to this that maybe I should examine before jumping to assumption that everything's fine? Hey, here at Kitz Corner, we want to thank you, our viewers and our subscribers that tune into Kitz Corner for the latest dives in trending news, political conspiracies, and the craziest of stories. However, being in this business isn't an easy job. Because we're independent, we can dive into stories that the mainstream outlets are afraid to do so. But unfortunately, that doesn't give us the luxury of big advertising or government subsidies. That's why we reach out to you. You can support Kitz Corner and get some cool new threads in the process. Say what? That's right, check out our merch store, where we have a big selection of t-shirts, mugs, stickers, sweaters, bags, and more. All with interesting designs too, like this True North Strong and Free. So if you want to show off your support, go to our website at kitzcorner.net. That's kitzcorner.net. And click the store link at the top of the screen. Or you can scan the QR code provided on screen to get instant access to our merch store. Your support makes a huge difference at what we do here. So why not wear your support too? So go to kitzcorner.net or scan the QR code on your screen to get to our one-of-a-kind Kitz Corner merchandise store. Thank you.